The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, a sunny Tuesday here in Southern California. The glass half full side of me is very excited about the New England Patriots. The glass half empty side, very upset about the Red Sox, who could be headed toward arguably the biggest collapse in baseball history. On the Subway Fresh Take Hotline right now, a man who cares about neither of these things, our friend Cousin Sal. What's happening?
Right. I have my own problems. And thank God we didn't do this yesterday, because I don't know if I would have been able to speak. Hours after the Cowboys collapsed.
You know, if you couldn't have done the podcast, what Joe and I were going to do, we're just going to rerun one of the other BS reports from after Tony Romo blew a game, and I don't think anybody would have known.
It does seem like there have been like 30 of these in the last 6 years, right? 5, 6 years. I'm like watching the same Bambi movie, but no, you got to watch this version. This version they throw Bambi off a roof, or they stab Bambi in this. Just watch it. It's a classic, but you still need to watch it.
I would say it's more like Kenny from South Park.
Yeah.
Like, how's Kenny going to die this week? Oh, he got hit by a steamroller.
Yeah.
What's the other weird thing is he almost like ups the stakes if it's like a Sunday night or Monday night game. I don't know what the history is with him, but it feels like at least half of these have come on Sunday night.
I feel like as soon as the Cowboys, when they approach and the league says, we want you on the first Sunday night game of the year, they should threaten to secede from the league and say, no, we're just not doing it. For some reason, we're not ready. Even though it's a few hours later than everybody else, we're not ready for that game.
Walk me through your emotional mindset. Jason Witten running for a touchdown.
All right, go ahead.
Guys chasing him from behind. He gets tackled on the one somehow instead of scoring. At that point, do you think you're going to score?
I thought we were going to score 3. I thought we'd get 3 points. I thought Jason Witten could have stiff-armed the defender at the 20 and still scored. I still don't know how he got in. And I got to say, I mean, half of it has to do with, probably all of it has to do with the fact that I named my son after Tony Romo, so I feel I need to defend him. But I give him 30% the blame. I give terrible offensive play calling, goal line play calling in particular, another 30%. I mean, everyone says, if they go up 10 there, they win the game. Well, run 3 times into the line. Who cares if Felix Jones loses 5 yards? You're kicking a field goal. If you're up 10, 6 minutes, and you're killing clock, all right, he fumbled, and I think he's unlucky more than anything. It was an inch, his knee was an inch from the ground, but why are they throwing a fade pass in that situation anyway? And I blame that. I blame. I mean, how many teams do you know that get a punt blocked, run back for a touchdown, and win a game in the fourth quarter? It doesn't. I mean, that is more than a momentum switch. So give that a good 20%. And then there are just players who quit or were injured. We got Jenkins. He's like the softest player in the league for some reason, a cornerback. Yeah. And Des Bryant developed epilepsy in the third quarter for some reason and couldn't move. So it's a team effort.
Group effort. So Romo goes back to pass on 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
He scrambles. The pocket collapses. He steps up like he should. Decides at some point, I'm going to try to run this in. What was your mindset as he's running toward the goal line?
I thought he had it, but I also thought he had it against Seattle when he was a holder and he botched a snap, and then Babineau caught him from behind the playoffs. But I really thought he was in. I'm like, he's taking off. He must see something I don't. And then he got crunched at the goal line, and you got to feel bad for the guy. You have to. I mean, there are guys. You got Phillip Rivers throws two interceptions. You have Sanchez fumbles, throws an interception. These teams win. Romo has to be perfect, otherwise there's a collapse. I can't say enough about it. And I don't know what the alternative is. Alex Smith, who could we have? Everyone's get rid of him. But really, what would we be looking at right now?
Well, two things is the first thing, not a good performance by the Jets. And, yeah, they get credit because they outcoached the Cowboys, and that's why they won, and that's part of the game. But, man, they just didn't play well. I didn't think they looked good. I don't think if you're a Jets fan, you can come away from that game going, all right, we're looking at a Super Bowl potentially here. And then the other thing,
they're the luckiest. They're now the luckiest. They weren't last year. They're the luckiest.
Did it last year. Yeah. It catches up. You're not going to ride luck for 5 straight months. You can ride it for 3.5 or 4, but not 5. And then the second thing, first and goal from the 1, second goal from the 1. It's a real problem when you can't get those. Like that's a fundamental problem in their team. We saw the same thing with the Saints-Packers game. The Saints had 2 4th and short or the last play of the game, and if you can't bang those in, that's a pretty big red flag. And
there are a few. It seems like there are half dozen teams who can't score from one. Dolphins last night. Like I never thought they'd be good, but they don't have the grinder. But yeah, it's bad. Maybe teams should just start quarterback sneaking from the 2. It can't be worse than some of these results we've seen.
Well, I thought of you yesterday. I almost tweeted it, but I think I've tweeted this too many times. But the fourth and 1 fade pattern in the end zone to Hartline, who had maybe a 1-inch height advantage on his cornerback. I don't know how many years in a row we have to watch that pass. And I wish there was some way to just come up with the success rate. It's got to be 12%.
Sailed way over his head, right? Like they had never practiced it before.
There's so many things that can go wrong with that pass.
Yeah.
And the only thing that can go right is the pass is thrown perfectly and the guy jumps at the perfect time and the defensive back doesn't turn around in time. 3 things have to happen for that play to work.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
To me, if you're going to do it at the 1 and 3rd down or 4th down, do it every play. Do it on 1st down. Throw sort of like a Hail Mary fade 20 yards down the sideline. If you're hoping for a catch or a pass interference or something. I don't know why we only see that play at the goal line. But
did you think the Patriots were not going to cover last night? It had all the elements of the classic. The Patriots have 600 total yards and somehow win by 7.
They just don't let they don't let teams sneak back in like that. They know the line. They have to know the line. They knew it went to 7.5. They're like, we're not. Oh wow, we don't even push if it's 7, we lose. Like no, we can't let them back in.
Well, the big play last night, Kyle Orton just dropping the ball. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did. He dropped back.
Right,
yeah.
They had a ton of momentum. It really seemed like, all right, Broncos are going to pass them and they're going to win, either push this game or win it. And then he just dropped the ball. He literally just put it up and it dropped to the ground, and that was it.
Well, it was a little wet there, but I don't know what to make of this Broncos team. I think, if I remember correctly, the first few weeks, about week 3, we start listing the 3 or 4 worst teams, 3 or 4 best teams, and they got it. They're in my bottom 3 right now, I think.
They're bad. Yeah, it's a bad team. I was mildly impressed by the Raiders. Their coaching staff wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. McFadden's good. It seemed like they have a bunch of defensive linemen. That's like a real strength for them. Like they had 4 guys coming every play, and they have a couple receivers that can make plays. Like maybe that's the team one of those teams is going to go 8-8 in that division. And you look at the Chiefs got killed by injuries. The Broncos looked awful last night. Maybe it's the Raiders. Maybe that's your 8-8, your random 8-8 team.
It could be the Raiders. You want them to have fewer than 100 penalty yards a game before you start picking them for the playoffs. But I actually predict that Janikowski is going to someday kick a 63-yard extra point because they're going to keep getting called for holding and move it back. But
that'd be interesting.
They could surprise you a little bit. Again, the Chargers look a little flat to start. So, and remember, they went 6-0 in the division last year. So this is at least 7 straight. I don't know how they ended the 09, but.
Okay, can we have a 63-yard field goal that doesn't have an asterisk next to it?
Why? What were they saying yesterday?
Well, you had 2 that happened in Denver where it's high altitude, and then the other one happened. The guy he had the birth defect. He had the iron boot covering the half the foot. Like God bless him, it was courageous that he played, but it was always a little strange that that wasn't a bigger deal. It should be a reverse
asterisk since Janikowski had 4 vodka gimlets in him before he kicked it. Should cancel that.
Last thing before we get to week 2, you and I, we love the Texans. We teased the Texans with 3 different teams. We love the Patriots on Monday night. Somehow we broke even for the week, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
We took Pittsburgh in the second half because they were down by 170 points, and they were getting 3, and they lost by 220.
Yeah, we were like, that was one of those halves where everything went wrong. They'll turn it around this half. Like, immediately there's an interception touchdown.
Yeah, they turned it over,
Yeah.
We'll win this week. This is an easy week.
All right, let's get to the lines. Week 2.
All right, week 2, Oakland at Buffalo. I won week 1. Oakland at Buffalo to start things off.
All right,
I have to say, I think this is the best game of on the early slate.
All right, and for the uninitiated, we guess the lines. Whoever gets closest wins. I have this exact. Buffalo by 3. That's going to be it.
I thought it was 3, and I thought it would be exact. And it started at 3. It's moved to 4 since last night.
Wow.
Which is interesting.
I would have thought Oakland would have made people be more convinced that should be 3.
Yeah, I would have thought so too, but maybe I don't know. Our producer Joe Meade has got to be real excited about this Bills team, right? It could be 2-0.
That's right,
Meade,
Sal.
Right?
That's right.
You can hear it in his voice. Joe Meade, is that a 1 o'clock game?
I think it's got to be 1 o'clock at Buffalo.
Oh, so see, Sal, that's what it is. It's the late Monday night game, and then Sunday at 1 p.m. East Coast time.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's where the point. I wish I had considered that. I'm fair with that 4-point.
Joe is very excited. People can't tell, but he's about to have an aneurysm.
Joe, we watched football Sunday with a Bills fan who basically had a 3-hour orgasm. Like, that game couldn't have gone better.
No, it was incredible, and it proves why you don't draft a quarterback when you've got an all-star Pro Bowler like Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It is true. Do you think he'll start or will Brady start? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Lots of penalties, short week, Joe. You could. I like the Bills here. I really.
I mean, you always talk about who's the sleeper, but people always pick sleepers like the Lions. The Bills would be an effing sleeper.
Yeah,
that's a legit sleeper. If the Bills stuck to 10-6 and made the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. It just they don't beat the Patriots at all, though. You think they steal one from the Jets? I could see them beating the Dolphins twice, but
they could steal one from the Jets at home. From what we saw from the Dolphins last night, I mean, I texted you this during the game, like even before the 99-yard pass. Like, it really felt like the Patriots should have had 60 points in that game. They ended up with 38, but every play they ran felt like it could have gone for 40 yards. Guys were wide open all over the field, nonstop.
Right.
Fitzpatrick could light them up twice. I wouldn't be shocked by that.
All right. That would be good. All right, second game, Green Bay at Carolina.
Oof, Carolina lost John Beeson, the middle linebacker.
He's sort of the linchpin of that defense. Right?
Yeah. And same thing when the Chiefs lost Eric Berry and Moakley. Like, you have like 5 or 6 really good players, and if you're not good to begin with and you lose one of those 5, it's not a good omen. I had the Packers by 8.5.
All right, you're going to get this because it started at 10.5. It's down to 10, and I said 12.5. This should be higher, I think. This should with Beeson out and Packers have 10 days rest. You give Aaron Rodgers 10 days rest. I mean, I don't know. I think Carolina, even though they lost, it's sort of a hangover game. Doesn't make sense. But I think
the only reason I went low for this reason, from what I saw from Cam Newton last week, who was very exciting. It seems like that's going to be a good garbage time team. Yeah. Like they're down 35-10, and Cam puts up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to make it close. Like it's gonna, and it feels like Steve Smith might set the record this year for most garbage fantasy yards that never should, didn't really count. On the subject, we're in a fantasy league together, obviously, and we're doing an auction ad drop this year. Yep. So this is going to be. I mean, there's some knuckleheads. This is going to take forever to explain, but someone's going to bid $10 on Cam Newton and not get him, and it's going to be hell to pay. So I need to explain these rules more carefully. Yeah, you have $100 to spend on free agents, and once you spend that $100, it's over. So you could conceivably spend $100 on Cam Newton. And you may have to. I mean, if he's like you said with the garbage time, he could pull up huge numbers. Well, plus our league doesn't really penalize interceptions that much, and the stat, he puts up those empty calorie stats. He runs the ball. He might be like a top 6 quarterback in our league. The only thing is Arizona's secondary is atrocious, so that might have been the best week he's going to have. Yeah, that's true. All right, Arizona at Washington. Speaking of Arizona, I don't believe in this Arizona team at all, and I think they got lucky last week. I'm going to say Washington by 3.5. Yeah, that's exactly what I said, and it's 4. It was 4. All right. Went down to 4, so we split that one. I like everything I read about Washington on Monday. It seems like that the guys on that team actually think that they're good.
Yeah, and I'm not sold on Arizona either. I think I'm going to try not to take an NFC West team when they play out of the division this year.
It's a good move. I think the Rams taught us that lesson against the Eagles. Forget about the injuries. It was a talent mismatch, and anytime they had Vic sacked, he just ran away from them, and it was just the firepower difference was significant.
You talking about the Rams?
Yeah, I was kicking myself watching that game. Like it's just the Eagles just had more talent. Like you just.
No, there's nothing to do with that. We bet the Rams to win the division, so of course, not only are they going to look terrible, but their starting quarterbacks going to get hurt, starting running back and wide receivers out for 12 weeks, whatever.
It was quite a game. Steven Jackson had a great run and then was never seen again. We're all looking around wondering what happened to him. Bradford gets hurt
by 30 when they scored. I'm like, wow, the Eagles are done, and we're winning our Rams bet. Awesome.
Amendola is the only receiver worth a damn in the Rams. He dislocates his elbow, an injury that happens like 3 times a year. So, yeah, good times.
Yep. All right, Baltimore at Tennessee.
Oof, we may have been wrong about that Ravens team.
We may have, but I sort of think it's hard. I was so wrong about that game. I probably shouldn't even talk about it, but I think they let it all on the table there. That's like this is their Super Bowl, and I mean they pulled it all stops. Steelers didn't have a chance. I don't think they keep that up every week.
It did feel like it was a kitchen sink game for them, right down to the fact that they faked an extra point to make it 29-7.
Yeah, you think
which
the
was
Steelers
like, all right, guys.
That in January?
I wouldn't have done that. I think that was a mistake. They were going to win the game anyway. What is that? What's the game again?
It's Ravens at Titans.
Yeah. Before Sunday, I would have said this was a classic Ravens by 3, but I think the Titans, it just doesn't look like they had enough time to get their offense together, like new quarterback, new coaches, all that stuff. I didn't think it was going to be as dramatically bad as it was. I'm going to say Ravens by 5.5.
All right, you get it. I said 4.5. It's 6. So. Yeah. You lead 4-2, including ties. But I'm telling you, I like the Titans this week more than you liked them last week. I think they at least cover it.
You watch that Ravens D, and then you think that Hasselbeck just didn't look comfortable with me. He really didn't, and it just seemed like teams were the team they played last week. Jacksonville.
Jaguars. I mean, they had a good fourth quarter, right? They sort of got it together.
It was garbage time, though. I mean. Yeah. The Jaguars were just like, we're stopping Chris Johnson. Go throw 400 yards on us, Matt Hasselbeck. And it didn't seem like he even knew the offense yet. Anyway.
Could be. All right. Seahawks at Steelers.
The Seahawks are really bad.
Yeah, they're my bottom 3, too.
It really seems like they're going to have trouble scoring. I will say their defense was a little better than I thought it was going to be. And I'm not sure if it was because they were playing San Francisco at Alex Smith or
that's the thing.
whether...
You need to see some of these teams play out of the NFC West to get a better determination.
Right. So I know for a fact that their offense is bad. Who are they playing again?
Steelers.
Yeah, this is bad.
I mean, can the Steelers secondary hang with Golden Tate and the bad Mike Williams? I don't know.
This is going to be a double-digit line, and I would like to caution everybody. Listen, we have a lot at stake with the Steelers. I'm not giving up on them by any means, but every year there's one team that we say for the first 5 weeks of the season, they're going to turn it around. They're whoever. Come on, they'll get it together. And it was the Titans were famous for this. Where they would, they go 0-5, and each week you're waiting for them to rally back. I'm a little concerned that the Steelers might be that team this year, but just because they looked so bad last week. So this line's going to be too high, and they might cover it. I'm going to say it's going to be 11.5.
Oh, wow, I said 11.5 also, and we're way low. It's 14.5.
Yeah, that's too high. That's a little too high.
Yeah, I know, but then you think if they're not going to whoop anyone, the Seahawks they're not going to take care of it against anyone. I don't know. I think it's a 30-7 game.
Yeah, you're taking Tavares in the Lions' den, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not bad. Well, we'll see. That's certainly the right kind of team to play after that game you had last week.
Yeah. Jacksonville at the New York Jets.
Jacksonville, week 2, I like week 2 because you kind of have to make a decision whether somebody just kind of played out of their asses or whether there might be a little something there or whether they look better just because of their opponent. I think the Jags looked okay last week just because of Tennessee. And just Tennessee didn't really play that well. Who's this game against? I'm sorry.
The Jets. The luckiest team in the NFL.
The luckiest team in the NFL, and I have the Jaguars getting 9 points.
You said 9?
Yeah.
All right, I screwed this up majorly. I said 6.5, and it's 10. Wow, you've won all 6 or tied. So
I told you I was going to have a good week.
Yeah, you're on fire. And
who do you, just for out of curiosity, what's stopping us from throwing the Jets in a 3-teamer right now? Because I certainly can't come up with a reason.
Well, I like the Steelers too. Oh, Steelers are over 14. No, it's got to be the Jets. Although they might win lucky, you know. They could win on a last-second field goal and just, you know, you got Rex Ryan smiling up the sideline. But Luke McCown is not going into the Meadowlands on 9/18, that sacred day, and beating the Jets. Yeah, I think we could take him.
Hey, were you surprised that Plaxico was as confident as he was? Like, I thought that was going to be a terrible signing, and it got to the point in the fourth quarter that was like their go-to guy.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you be confident if the guy covering you was 8 inches shorter?
Maybe that's what it was.
You're running, I'm throwing passes to you, and your son is trying to shadow you.
I was surprised. I didn't think he'd have an impact like that.
I know. I didn't want him to be as good. I actually thought Ocho would have more of an impact as far as the troublemaking wide receivers go. But that continues?
We have that as one of our bets, right? Andre Johnson, 1.5 touchdowns. Yeah, I was pretty locked in on that one because by all accounts, he just can't remember the playbook, and I think they can only play him in special packages. Brady throws for over 500 yards, and Ocho Cinco's one catch. It does not bode well for him the rest of the season. Well, the other thing nobody realized is how much they're going to go 2 tight end. And if they go 2 tight end with a running back, you can only play 2 receivers, and Branch and Welker are always going to play over Ocho.
Right.
So unless somebody gets hurt, he's just not going to get plays.
Yep. All right, Chicago at New Orleans.
I like this one because Chicago's one of those teams we talked about. I don't know. They might be better than I thought. It was a very impressive win by them, which, of course, we couldn't see that much of because DirecTV froze for 2 hours at the sports bar we were at.
Right.
And then New Orleans, I hate to call it a must-win, but you don't want to start 0-2.
I have that written down, too. I think all the NFC South lost last week, so maybe it isn't a must-win, and Carolina's going to lose to Green Bay, and Atlanta has a tough one at Philly, and I think Tampa's got a tough one, too, at Minnesota or something. But, yeah.
Well, for their defense needs to show that it can do anything because it was embarrassing, that Packers game. I kind of feel like Cutler could do well against the defense. I like the Bears as a possible upset pick. I'm going to say Saints by 6.
You get this one too, man. I said 5.5, and it's all the way up to 7.
So
Can I just say something? I'm in this. I'm in the suicide pool. You're not in it. It's a knockout. You pick a team every week to win. People know how this goes, and then you can't pick them the rest of the year. And then if you've lasted to the end of the year, you've won. So it's crazy. It's $100. There are like 3,000 people in it. I have no idea who runs it, but the guy has a lot of cash. Let me just say my friend is in it. I won't even say I'm in it. My friend is in it. But
good move.
5 people took the Saints at the Packers as their suicide. the hardest game of the year. I need to meet these people so I could pay for the lobotomy.
Oh, I would think the Browns killed some teams last week.
Oh, yeah, and no thanks to me. I love them. Yeah, I'm out. I'm out of that pool.
Oh, you took the Browns?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, I love them. I love that team. I'll do it again.
I don't know how they lost.
Hold on. I didn't know Bruce Grodkowski was going to be in. I thought it was, I thought it was Andy Dalton. I totally would have backed off that.
Yeah.
All right, KC at Detroit.
KC, it's weird. This will happen occasionally. The season just looks over. You'll see it like 1 or 2 times a year. You're in week 2 and you just look at the team and you're like, all right, let's have the autopsy. And then on the other side, listen, I said this last week. If Detroit went into Tampa and kicked their ass, I was happy to flip from the Tampa bandwagon to Detroit bandwagon for gambling purposes.
This is like all right, how much do you read into week 1? Like, I don't want to read into it too much, but I sort of do feel like I'm on Detroit's side now. I think everyone was kind of right about them. And I feel like the Chiefs are done, especially now Barry is out for the year. And, Going against a hot Matt Stafford.
Here's the thing to remember. Detroit didn't even play well in that Tampa game, and they won convincingly. And you could say Josh Freeman got hurt in the second half, whatever, but Stafford threw a pick for a touchdown in the first half. Mm-hmm. I just thought they didn't even play well, and they won, which I think is scary.
And that's a tough road game in Tampa.
Yeah.
Humidity is 140%. So
here's the other thing I like about them, because I saw this in the exhibition game too, and this is the one thing that made me scared about picking them not to make the playoffs, is they had some real swagger in the exhibition game against the Pats. They were like starting fights, and just they had this attitude like they belonged in the game with the Pats, and it felt like they had that same swagger. In Tampa, the key play was that fourth down play to Johnson that he got the touchdown on, but that was kind of a ballsy call.
Yeah.
There's something about that.
They play like a veteran team. They really do.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I picked against them just because I didn't think Stafford and Johnson and Javid Best could stay healthy, but those guys are healthy right now. So I'm going to ride them until they start getting injuries. I have Detroit by, I'm going to say 8.5.
Oh, come on. I had 8 and it's 9. Wow, you're running the table here. I don't think no one's ever run the table. Certainly not me. This is 8 in a row for you. It's
a two-person effort, and I'd like to thank you for helping me try to get to this goal.
How dare you?
I think that gets to 10. I really do. I think that maybe even gets to 10.5. The Chiefs just have that stink to them.
It is sort of weird that the Lions are favored by more than a touchdown against a division winner from last year. I didn't think I'd ever see it. But all right, Cleveland at Indy. And Peyton Manning not playing this game?
Not playing.
He's not back.
The Browns should really be ashamed, because this should be a 2-0 start for them. And I still don't know how they lost that Bengals game. I'm going to have Indy by 3. Got to do it.
All right, I had Indy by 3 also, and it's the Browns by 2.5. If you don't like Indy this week, you think they're going to go 1-15, right?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. The Browns did nothing for me in that Week 1 game to make me think that they should be favored in Week 2.
Yeah.
Over anybody. I thought they sucked.
I know Collins was taking a lot of heat, but it seemed like we looked up at that game and it was 17-0. Like I don't even think did he have like 2 drives before that game was over.
Their defense, plus Lombardi said this in my podcast 2 weeks ago. I thought it was a good point. Their best 2 defensive players are pass rushers, and if you're down 17-0, you've basically eliminated those 2 guys from the game.
That's it. Yeah, that is a good point.
The thing with the Browns, just watching them, hoping they were going to come back. Nobody has worse receivers than them.
Yeah.
And it's
it is tough when they're looking at Massakai and Peyton Hillis can't run for more than 3 yards. It's
neither of those guys was even drafted for $1 in our 18-player per team fantasy league.
Yeah.
And it's and then you have Hillis who's not really a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield. And it just seems like you can stack the line against them. I don't know.
I think you're hustling me now. I think you want to bid on Massakai in our ad drop. And,
I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I can promise you I don't.
You're trying to shy me away. Yeah. So that's weird that the Browns are favored on the road.
I don't get it.
Pretty lousy performance last week. Tampa Bay at Minnesota.
This is one of these teams is done for the season if they lose this game. I don't think either team is good enough to rally back from 0-2. Detroit might just be good. And if that's the case, then I don't feel that bad about that Tampa loss. McNabb looked washed up last week. That's a game you should win. San Diego's trying to give it to them. And you think they lost their field goal kicker too, and they had to go for it every time they're inside the 30, and they still won the game. It's pretty embarrassing.
This is a tough one, though. What do you do with this?
I said I have Minnesota by 2.
All right, wow, I win one actually here. It's Minnesota by 3, and that's what I said. So.
Wow, so that Vegas saying that Minnesota and Tampa Bay are dead even.
Yeah.
I don't agree with
Vegas doesn't like Tampa. What they only had their over/under 7.5, 8, right?
I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, you don't agree. You also left me a message.
Uh-oh.
I don't know when you left. I think you left this message tomorrow. I think if that's at all possible. But
did?
You're worried about Josh Freeman. Let me just play it. I don't like to play these, but I like to get your permission ahead of time. Let me just play this one. Hold on.
Cousin Sal, sports guy here. Just finished a case of hard lemonade. Watching my DVD collection of greatest icing calls in the history of the Boston Bruins. It's the coup de grace of all icing DVDs. Now I'm alone with my thoughts and concerned that after a tough loss this week, my boyfriend and lifeline, Josh Freeman and his Buccaneers, travel all the way down south to play the Minnesota Vikings. A scary bunch, those Vikings. Guys are out to kill. Big, fat, intense Scandinavian men covered in beards and bubonic plague, running around credit card commercials yelling, "What's in your wallet?" Well, let me tell you, if you Vikings even think of laying a shield on my Joshy-Washy Twinkle Toes, I want you to remember one thing. As the great Pearl Jam once said, Daddy didn't give attention to the fact that Mommy didn't care. King Jeremy the Wicked ruled his world. Jeremy spoke in class today. Jeremy spoke in class today. Jeremy spoken. Doggone it, I can't sing. Sports guy over and out. Con.
I left that tomorrow?
That's weird. You left it tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah. You have an odd setup there. The way you rigged your phones, but
I'm back on my man Josh Freeman. The only thing I'll say that worries me about Minnesota is Peterson was running with like some real kick to him, I thought, in that Week 1 game. And,
last week he was?
Yeah, I felt like he was, and then obviously McNabb sucked the life out of his body by the end of the game. But the first half, all of us were looking at each other like, oh my God. Like he's going to rush for 3,000 yards this year, and then eventually
they're good. They could be good. They're one of my overs. I'd like very few teams over, and the Vikings were one that I like.
Yep.
All right, late afternoon. Here we go. Dallas at San Fran. This should not be close, but we know how this goes.
Dallas at San Fran. I'm going to say Dallas by 3.5.
I said 3.5. Also, it's 3. So we both get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
San Fran, Alex Smith thing is just... Also...
If you keep Ted Ginn out of the way, you should be able to beat San Francisco every week.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ted Ginn... What's the record for special teams kick return touchdowns? It's like 5 or 6? Yeah, so he already...
Can slow down. He's way ahead of the game.
He's already 2 there, yeah.
Let me tell you, I went off on the Cowboys, but I like what I see for the most part. I really do. I like the offensive line. I like the play calling, except by the goal line. I like that we're in every play defensively. We have a third-string safety coming up with a sack. I mean, if he played 25 years under Wade Phillips, that wouldn't happen. I like Dez when he's not undergoing paralysis late in the third and fourth quarter. I like it. I really do. I think we can.
I like where you are, too. The only thing is, Washington might be better than you thought, so that's going to be an interesting division.
Yeah. Well, if we cannot get swept by them, we might be in all right shape. All right, Cincinnati at Denver.
Oof. Denver by 3. Awful game.
I guess I get this. I said 5, and it's 4.5.
I like Cincy. What did Denver, if anything, it seems like that's a disadvantage for Denver to be at home because they boo Kyle Orton every time he throws an incompletion.
Yeah, you're right.
If I'm Kyle Orton, I'd rather be on the road. That was not a home field advantage last night.
Yeah, this is I don't know. Man, like I said, Denver's in my bottom 3, but are we ready to give Cincinnati another road win?
They can run the ball. And A.J. Green, as always, with these wicked red receivers where you think, they don't have a quarterback to throw, and then the guy gets a 40-yard touchdown. He's going to stretch the defense. Cincy, I have my eye on as a possible 8-8, 9-7 sleeper. It's not unrealistic yet.
We have to keep an eye on them. San Diego at your New England Patriots.
Yeah, and we got the Luis Castillo injury, I think, is really going to help.
Mm-hmm.
I was
hoping the Mets would have a Luis Castillo injury years back. That never really came to fruition.
I had this at 6, and then after last night, I think it bumps to 7. Pats by 7.
Yeah, I said 7. You say 7. It's 7.
All right.
So,
is that the first good game you've mentioned?
This is Bears Saints is interesting, and I don't know why I'm telling you. I like the Bills Raiders, but what else? What'd you say?
Yeah, you're right. Bears Saints is good. So we got 2.5 good games next week so far.
Yeah, and I don't recommend betting against the Patriots for a while because 7 seems high, but I don't think it is. And that over-under, 52. I I think they're going to be in the 40s, even against good teams.
Yeah.
Like you said, they sort of laid off a little last night. Houston at Miami. Not a good.
Yes. Here's a game where the week 1 results could affect the week 2 line. Because normally I would have said maybe Miami by 1, something like that. But I have Houston 3.5 for this.
Yeah, you're going to get this. I said Houston 1.5.
Yeah.
So you got it.
Fair enough.
Me.
All right.
Killing me. Philly at Atlanta, Sunday night.
Michael Vick's return.
This is Michael Vick's return. I read somewhere that the family of the dog victims are going to be at midfield for the coin toss. So.
Is that true?
Yeah, like the dog, like the mother dog and the father dog.
Oh, you wrote me in on that. I can't believe you. I don't know if Atlanta's good, and I think too many people blew smoke up their butts. This might have been one of the few things I was right about in my NFL preview. I'm going to say Atlanta by 1.5.
All right, I'm getting this because I said Philly by 1. I really had struggled with this one, and it's Philly right now by 2.5.
Oh. Apparently
I think
Vegas
Matt Ryan
agrees.
needs to have a big game here. He really. This is one of his bigger non-playoff games. He should step it up.
Yeah, the thing with Philly is you could see the holes in that game, that week 1 game that they had against the Rams, and yet Vic just 4 or 5 times in the game is going to create this 25-yard play out of nowhere, and it just covers up the holes. And the Rams, you could see them kind of just losing steam as that game went along.
Yeah, it's nice when you could go like, what was he, 14 of 32, Vic, and then no one even looks at that. Like, he's back. It's like, yeah, because on 3rd and 7 he could sprint down the sideline and
they had him. There was a couple plays where they just sacked him. It really would have changed the momentum of the game, and every time he would just get away.
All right, Monday night. I'm gonna have to look for this line now because they took it off. It's Rams at Giants. I think Bradford's playing. I think Jackson's not playing. We know Amendola's not playing.
Rams at Giants.
Are you guys going to get a good game, ESPN? I mean, you guys do a lot for the sport of football. They should give you a good game once in a while.
This one, I mean, you got to go Giants by 3.5 just because of all the Rams injuries, right?
All right, I actually picked this one exact. It's Giants by 6.
Whew.
8, 9. Hold on. I think you beat me, but 1, 2, 3.
I beat you handily. What are you talking about?
I came back a little. It was 12 to 10, including ties. But
I know, but I had my reserves in for the last few picks.
That doesn't make any sense. No, I don't know. Who's going to watch this game?
It's pretty bad. You get a lot of Steven Jackson shots on the sideline wearing street clothes.
Yeah.
Jamie Amendola with the cast. You get a lot of that going.
Yeah, and the Giants don't do it for me this year either. So.
That's not a bad game. Maybe we have to give the NFL more money to get good games.
Well, I don't know if that was going to be a good game last year when they put it on the schedule. How good a game was that going to be? That early on. What do we like as an upset?
I like the Bears.
The Bears over the Saints. The Saints are going 0-2 to start.
What was the other one we said was way too high? They're like in the 5 to 6 range.
I think I'm going Tennessee. I know you're going to hate that over Baltimore.
No, I'm in on Tennessee.
All right.
To win it outright, though?
Sure. Yeah, I think they win. I think it comes down to the wire, but they win.
Cousin Sal, a pleasure as always. Do your Jimmy Kimmel Live plug.
Thank you. Let me plug on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Judge Judy tonight. Steve Buscemi later in the week, the Little League World Series champs from Huntington Beach. Stained will be on, and my Grantland blog, on Friday, I'll have NFL propositions. And just take the other side, really. I mean, I don't want to get yelled at. I'm bad and I lose, so just make money going the other way, right?
Yeah, we forgot to plug that. You're in the triangle. I think it's going to be Thursdays or Fridays?
I don't know, depending on when these props come out.
All right.
We'll see.
Yeah, you're picking your favorite props every week. You took a couple swipes at me that I didn't appreciate, but we're going to run the block. That was funny. I enjoyed it.
All true.
Nice to have you aboard. Talk to you next week.
Thanks a lot, Billy.
All right, take care. All right, we're going to make an abrupt switch to the land of television. One of our favorite TV critics, if not our favorite, on the Subway Fresh Tech Hotline right now from HitFix.com. Alan Sepinwall, what is happening?
Bill, Entourage is over. I don't know how I'm going to go on with my life.
You know what? I woke up Monday morning. I was in a good mood, and I realized it was because I was never going to get sucked into another episode again.
I was able to kick the habit for about a year, and I came back at the end just because, professional curiosity. I wanted to see how it ended. It ended pretty exactly like I expected it to.
It was a really bad season, and it was a really, really bad season. And I guess the one thing that warms my heart is that Turtle finally has something of his own.
$4 million that he actually did nothing to earn.
Yeah. I guess the third time they tried that plot, that was the time that was going to work. You wrote that you feel like you look at like the second season of the show, or the first half of the third season, and you see the potential of where that show could have gone and then where it ended up. I would argue I thought the first season was actually the best season of the show. That to me exhibited the most potential. And I don't know why it went the way it did, but it basically turned into Arliss. Like, you had all these carefully arranged real-life cameos from people, and then, just these very generic storylines, and that became the show. But, like, to wrap things up with Vince is just going to fly to Paris to get married?
He's going to fly to Paris to get married to a woman who, when last we saw her, really wanted nothing to do with him, and then suddenly on some magical off-screen 24-hour date decides that he's amazing and they have to get married immediately.
And then it's like, if any show ever in the history of mankind needed a bachelor party episode, you would have thought it would have been Entourage with the Vince episode.
Yeah, I just don't think they put very much thought into anything. I think there's a lot of stories they did. Even these last couple of stories, they could have had some fun with if they'd actually planned it out and sketched it out. But I always get the sense that basically, Doug Ellen comes into his office, throws 3 ideas out there. 2 hours later, the first draft is done, and that's what they shoot.
Because I remember, like, season 2, it felt like, the show was starting to get a little stretched out and a little predictable, but it was mainly because they'd ordered too many episodes of it. And, they had to stretch along that Mandy Moore dates Vince, it's bad, and it just went on 5 episodes longer than it should have. This time, though,
13 is a good number for any cable show, whether it's a comedy or a drama. More than that, you're always asking for trouble.
Right, but this year they had 8. You couldn't have written 8 episodes?
Apparently not.
What?
They just wanted to wrap it up and yet somehow leave it open for a movie, but who wants to see an Entourage movie at this point?
Nobody, and I think that would be a real mistake if they did that. They got hung. If you watch the first season of Entourage, they were episodes that could stand on their own. They didn't tie into the next episode. You know what I mean? Like, they were just 22-minute pieces of what it was like for these guys to be in Hollywood. And then eventually they did what I like to call the 90210 phenomenon of these shows build toward the next show, and you need some sort of cliffhanger or some sort of pull or some sort of connection between episode 4 and episode 5. And eventually that just became the show. And that connection almost became more important than, what it was like for these 4 guys. Like, a good example, like, the guy shoots himself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like, shocking ending. Let's tune in next week to see what happened to this big guy in the bathroom. It's like, all right, so he's dead, and then Vince faked a drug test, and there's really ultimately no payoff. It had nothing to do with anything.
The payoff is Scott Conn talking into a Whizzinator.
Right. But I always thought that when people wrote television shows that they sketched out, all right, here's my end game, and then how are we going to get to that end game, and then within that journey from beginning to end, when we get to the end game I need to get, I'm going to set up all these different things and then have them pay off. And then in this one, I guess what they were trying to set up was Ian and Sloane don't like each other, but now they're going to get back. Ari's wife and Ari, they're going through, but now that's going to work out. And then Vince is going to find true love with somebody who challenges him. Were those the 3 things I was supposed to take away?
I guess. I think they thought everyone was a whole lot more invested in Ian Sloane than anyone actually was, for starters.
I got to be honest. I watched every minute of every episode this season, and probably I've seen every episode. I don't even know why things fell apart. It was unclear. It was like she was just mad at him. I was like, all right, so I guess she's mad at him this year. But because why? Because he wouldn't sign a prenup agreement?
Yeah, that was in the one season I didn't watch. So, fortunately, I missed out on the big relationship drama there.
But why would she be mad that he didn't sign a prenup agreement?
I think it was also like he screwed over her father's best friend and kicked him out of his own agency, that sort of thing. So there was a couple things going on there, is what I gathered.
All right, and then you look at Ari. Like, I think the reason we liked Ari was because he was this career barracuda, and he was just this guy that just came in almost like a closer in a baseball game and changed the energy of the episode for a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden, about halfway through the Entourage run, it was decided that Ari needed to have a heart, too. And that we cared about Ari's family and his wife, whose name that I still don't know. Andy Greenwald on Grantland.com called her Camel Toe McCougar.
They gave her a name in the last couple of episodes. I think it was Melissa.
Oh, Melissa. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I finally found out her name.
No, I think what happened with Ari is actors get bored a lot of the time, and then they go to the producer and say, look, I've been doing this exact same thing for too long. I want to stretch a little bit. I want to get at the emotion. Who is Ari Gold? What does he really want? And that's how you get this.
Yeah, okay. I think that character was pretty good as it was. It's probably the best thing in the show.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the show. They don't think anything through. I remember there's that scene in the finale where Ari goes to Lloyd, hey, here's your first client, these opera singers. And A, Lloyd is the head of the agency TV department, so I don't know what he needs with opera singers. B, we know Lloyd has many clients, and his first client was Johnny Drama because it happened on this TV show that these guys are writing that they can't even be bothered to remember for 3 minutes.
Right. And, you look at Ari and just him walking away from his family is not consistent with anything that happened with his character since 2004. Like the thing about his character was it was always his business first, and then his family. He tried to shoehorn into that. I don't think anybody. I mean, is there history of anyone in Hollywood walking away from that kind of power before they turned 50? I don't think it's ever happened. Am I crazy?
If it's happened, it's very rare, and I don't buy that it would happen to this guy.
No, this guy, the whole thing about this guy was he was a soulless machine of just the next deal and getting the next thing done and the whole thing. The other thing is they had two separate plots at the same time of what I like to call the Adrian Balboa wet blanket plot of the wife and or girlfriend and or fiance just screaming at the other guy that he needs to grow up and, just basically bringing him down and then eventually breaking him down and he comes back into the fold and kind of breaks away from the guys. But to do two of those simultaneously, I thought was pretty brave.
Well, here's the thing. The people who like the show more than I did always defended it as saying, look, I know it's not great or I know it's not funny, but I just like hanging out with these guys and seeing them, have misadventures and banter and stuff. And I get that. And if that's the chief appeal of the show, why do you want the guys to grow up?
Right.
That defeats the whole purpose of it.
Right. And listen, I'm going to defend the show for a second. I watched every second of it. Whether it was good or bad, I always had some sort of reaction, which is, I guess, a bonus. I think in later years, I liked it more just because I lived in Los Angeles, and it's like the old Chuck Klosterman theory of that this was more of a travel show than anything.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're at Ketchup. Oh, interesting. I've always wondered what that restaurant looked like. So I would get that out of it. And, kind of hoping that maybe they'd have these little nuggets in there, like I'd feel like, oh, they must be talking about that executive, or, oh, that guest star is a parody of that person. And they just went away from that the last few years, which was, I think, their biggest mistake. And we've talked about this before. Like, you look at season 1, they had the obvious Britney Spears parody character, the girl who was pretending she was a virgin publicly but wanted to have sex with Vince.
Yeah, Leighton Meester.
Yeah, played by Leighton Meester. Looked great. But that's the kind of stuff that I think that they just missed the boat on. And
they got big heads, and they knew that lots and lots of stars and random football coaches like Barry Alvarez, were dying to guest star on the show. And so, like, great, we'll put them all on, and this will make us look even more awesome and more authentic. And it was also an easier thing to do than having to actually come up with a character.
Right. And I remember maybe halfway through the show, they had the random Brian Grazer cameo. He's walking across the street, and Ari walked by him, and Ari's like, hey, it's Brian Grazer. It's like, hey. It's like, oh, Brian Grazer clearly called him. It's like, my son loves Entourage. I was wondering if I could be in it. And once you start doing that stuff, you just, that's the focus of the show is going to change. And it just feels like I don't know, can you call it a missed opportunity? Because a lot of people watch the show. It stayed on for 8 years. Like, by that, I always use this logic with somebody like Chris Webber, where Chris Webber made $260 million in his career, made a first-team All-NBA, and played in the Western Conference Finals a couple times, and people feel like his career underachieved. I don't think that's fair. I think it underachieved if you wanted him to be one of the best 15 players ever. Entourage, I think people feel like it underachieved, and I think you can make the case that it didn't. Do you feel like it underachieved?
I think it did, just because I think it was a show with very modest aims, and it somehow sort of consistently found a way to like land below whatever it was aiming at. Chris Webber, had a good career, never won a title and all that, but like the fans in Sacramento didn't all hate him by the end of his career, which is kind of the reaction most Entourage fans seem to have for this last season.
Yeah, I remember like even like about midway through when the show was starting to transition into a show that didn't have jokes. I mean, it wasn't a comedy this year, right?
No, not at all.
Well, you can't call it a comedy. I don't know. It's like a dramedy, I guess. I don't even know. But, in the old days...
It was a half hour of lifestyle porn featuring vaguely fictional characters.
Yeah, and like guys dealing with middle age, kind of, or growing up, or I don't know. That's not
losing weight, skinny turtle.
I had somebody email me like, where's the comedy and the nudity? What about that recipe, Entourage? But, as it was transitioning, there was that whole storyline they had with Martin Landau, who played that character. What was that, Bob Ryan? Is that his name?
Something like that. It was definitely Bob.
And it was the obvious Robert Evans type of character. And this is exactly the kind of stuff they should have been doing. Like these guys, is that supposed to be Bob Evans? And that was a good story arc. And it had a payoff and everything. And even like you think about like the little wrinkles they were able to put in over the years with, like one of my favorites was when Ari they had the emergency meeting the secret meeting, and they had it at Hamburger Hamlet. Yeah. Because nobody in Hollywood goes to Hamburger Hamlet. There's a lot of stuff like that was really funny, and they just by this last season they just veered away from it for whatever reason. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think back to that Martin Landau episode that introduced him and ends with like Vincent E. and Martin Landau walking through the agency together while Blitzkrieg Bop plays, and they're going to do the Ramones movie, and like that's an episode that feels like it was part of an actually good show.
Yeah.
And occasionally Entourage could do that in the early days, and they just got super lazy as they went along.
Yeah, and I also think, like, for a show that everybody complains about a lot, there's a lot of – I could tell you a lot about those guys. Like, if you had some sort of Entourage trivia quiz, I'd probably do pretty well. Because it'd be like, all right, what was the superhero movie Vince did? Aquaman. Who was the co-star? Mandy Moore. Like, you can go through it. It's like I do feel like I know everything that happened in the show. Maybe that's –
Do you remember Turtle's first name? I've already forgotten it.
Oh, I didn't know Turtle had a first name.
Yeah, he reveals it to the girl he dates, I think, who eventually leads him to the tequila company.
Oh, Jesus. What was it?
I don't remember.
Oh. Yeah, that was another issue with the show is initially they had a really nice balance, and Drama and Turtle were who they were supposed to be, these supporting posse member guys, these guys that, were ostensibly lowlifes, guys that just attach themselves to the star and suck up to him, and they get to live for free off him, and yet they have his back, and the star can trust him because he knows that they're his friends for a real reason and not like the new friends he meets. And and eventually I always blame the TV networks for this because I think they give them notes, and I think the notes were like, we need more from Turtle. What if Turtle needs something for himself? And they take the notes and they're like, oh, that's a good note, yeah. And then, they like the actor who plays Turtle, who everybody says is a nice guy. Like, oh, hey, Jerry, we're gonna give you more to do this year. Oh, great. Yeah, you're gonna date Meadow Soprano, and eventually, you're gonna want something from your own. Oh, this is awesome. Yeah, I love it. I think Turtle definitely should. And then also now you have you're spinning off Turtle, somebody who nobody really cares what happens to because the guys that we care about are Vince and E. Yeah. And that's when you get into trouble. And same thing with Ari. It's like, yeah, well, we're going to bring Ari's family into it more this year. And we're going to get to know his kids and his wife. I don't really want to know his wife and his kids. I just want Ari to just go into meetings and be a That's why we like Ari.
Yeah, Ari was always at his best when Vince had created some huge problem and Ari had to put out the fire.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest Ari scene ever was in season 1 when he went to the went to the beach house to go after that agent who he felt like was coming after one of his clients, remember?
Yeah.
Or he had screwed up something, and he stormed into that beach house party and pulled the Ari routine. And that's the Ari that I just think they should have stuck with. But you're right. I mean, I'm sure Piven, after 4 years, is like, I need to prove that I have a heart, too. Starts thinking about his next job.
Yeah, I mean, a sort of a sense of importance is one of the worst things that can happen to a show that's trying to be light. Everyone began to believe, we're this great representation of Hollywood, and so this has to matter now, and we have to start taking things seriously, and it's not a good idea.
Do you think, let me throw this at you, HBO owns Entourage, they own the name, right?
I think so. They certainly own the show.
Right. What if they had just said, all right, Doug Ellen and cast, you guys who want to do this movie, good luck to you. We're going to do an Entourage, the new generation, and we're going to have a whole new cast and a new showrunner. And we're going to take the brand that you created, almost like a Law and Order. The brand that you created, we're now going to take into a different direction, and either we're going to have it with a female actress, or we're going to have it with like an African American R&B singer / actor. And it's a whole new thing and a whole new look at Hollywood, and none of the characters overlap. Why wouldn't they do something like that?
Because it would make them seem too much like NBC or CBS. They've got their whole, we're not TV, we're HBO, we don't do things like that.
But it could be a good show.
It could be. They're sort of doing that with How to Make It in America, which, Mark Wahlberg's production company is doing that. It's not the exact same show, but it's sort of a similar vibe. It's on the East Coast. It's, young guys having fun, trying to make it. Things always work out for them in the end, etc. And you can sort of do that and say it's its own thing and not get tagged with, we're just, we're franchising it out. We're making the spin-off. We're putting, a semicolon and then a new name after it.
I don't agree with that.
Perception matters in the business, and HBO is not perceived as a place that does that sort of thing. That's all. Maybe one day they will. Right now they're not.
I actually like How to Make It in America. I like the last season of How to Make It in America more than the last couple of seasons of Entourage, and I will watch the second season. I don't have high hopes for it, but
because that show was young and hungry. That's the way Entourage sort of was once upon a time. So it's always a good thing for a show. You never want it to get too satisfied and get too big of a head.
But I wrote a big review of Entourage after season 1, talking about how, despite a lot of its flaws that were pretty obvious, it was a show that I really enjoyed, and I always was disappointed when it was over, which is, that's saying a lot, because there's not a lot of TV shows that make you feel that way. And I was trying to figure out in the column, going forward, where this show was going to go, because to me, it just felt like you had two guys who really couldn't act. There's your leads. You had Vince, who just was not good casting. Like, he just is somebody that really couldn't take you anywhere. And same thing with E. Now, E got better as the show got along. I think he was serviceable. I don't think he was good or anything. But, in season 1, Piven was blowing these guys off the screen. And, I kind of feel like that's how it played out. There was only so much you could do with the two leads. And that's why you had to beef up Ari's part and, rely on these cameos and all this stuff. Do you feel like they were almost like covering up, like the way you'd cover up if your team doesn't have a center and you got to go small ball? Was that what happened here?
I think that's certainly part of it. Again, like if Grenier, I think I've told you this before, if Grenier had the charisma to actually be a movie star, he would be a movie star. He wouldn't be playing a fake one on HBO.
Good point. Well, it's too bad. I think people would have been a lot more maybe kind or not even cared about the season finale, but the fact that they clearly used this 8-episode season as a way to establish the movie that's coming down the road, I think it rubbed everybody the wrong way. It was just a bad decision.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to just make your show solely a vehicle to make people go to the movies and spend $10.
Right. And they also made the fatal mistake of, I think a lot of people missed that Ari thing because they buried it after the credits. And,
Yep.
The way that show ended, it was just the last 5 minutes were so bad. I think everybody's reaction was to just press up.
Literally, the only reason I saw the Ari scene is because I wanted to hear Going to California all the way to the end.
I thought you made a good point about that. About part of the show's legacy has to be how they were able to convince some of these artists that they use for songs to lease the songs. Like Led Zeppelin, you never hear, as you said, unless it's Cameron Crowe. So the only way you can hear a Led Zeppelin show and a thing. But, yeah, even that felt familiar because it was like the exact same shot that they had used in a plane hangar at least one other time, I think.
They've been in plane hangars a few times. I think towards the end of the first season when Vince was heading off to shoot Queens Boulevard.
That was another one.
Something like that.
But then there was the one when somebody was going away in a charter and the other one wasn't, and I forget what song.
That's my favorite Entourage moment ever. They're trying to go to Cannes, and all the planes have been canceled because of a terrorist scare or something.
Yeah.
And they finally get someone offers them a lift, but there's only 3 seats and Turtle can't come. And it's like, all right, no, we're all my boys go or nobody goes, and we'll just wait for something else to happen. And then Kanye West walks by.
Right.
And like, hey Kanye, can you give us a lift to Cannes? Sure.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good scene. And the one thing that Entourage was really good at, I thought, was it. And this is something that if you can do it in TV, it's half the battle. It would have these little moments that felt like a moment, And I think Friday Night Lights is a show that was one of the best at that. It would have these moments within the show, and you're like, oh, that was a moment, Entourage somehow was able to have these moments even when the scripts weren't that good and the actors weren't that good. They were very good at having those. You agree?
I don't know that I'm comfortable putting Entourage in the same sentence as Friday Night Lights. I mean,
but you know what I mean, though.
No, but I never felt like, Friday Night Lights would send tingles down my spine, and Entourage, even when Entourage was good, never quite did that. It was more Entourage. Oh, that was satisfying. Oh, that was kind of amusing. It never really affected me on an emotional level the way Friday Night Lights did.
I don't mean that as a moment. I mean, you're talking about a different type of moment. I'm just talking about a moment that resonates, and if you think back 3 years later, you go, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was a fun 2 seconds, or that was a fun 9 seconds, or whatever.
Well, I mean, certainly like you, I remember a lot more Entourage moments than I probably do some shows I like more.
Yeah.
Just because, all the cameos and things like that make things stand out.
I'll give you an example. I watched every episode of How to Make It in America, and I actually enjoyed it. And the show's been away for a year. If you asked me to tell you my favorite scene in any of those shows, I literally could not come up with one. It just kind of went in one ear and out the other, which was great. That's part of TV's job, is to kill time for me for a half hour. I don't remember anything that happened last season. I don't even remember where they left off.
I just remember Luis Guzman was trying to sell something called Rasta Monster. That's about it.
I vaguely remember that. What was your favorite show this summer? Did you have a favorite show?
Breaking Bad's on this summer, and Louis on FX. Those were 2 of the 3 best shows on TV at the moment. They had fantastic summers.
And the other one's Curb?
No, Curb had a good season, but Parks and Recreation is my other, but that hasn't been on this summer. So, but Louis was fantastic, had one of the all-time great, I don't want to call it a comedy season because it wasn't incredibly funny, but it was just sort of great to see. And Breaking Bad is incredible.
Louis is a show that had a lot of those moments that I was talking about in another way. You think of something like the Halloween episode when they just gets confronted by those 2 creepy thugs. And you just never knew where the show was going. And it always kept you on your toes. And the show was so unconstructed and weird. And it tapped into, this part of Louis that, I don't know, it was kind of dark. It was an amazing season. I'm really glad that I kept watching because I didn't like season 1.
Yeah, no, it's very personal, and you can tell even if you know nothing about Louis C.K. whatsoever, you can sort of tell, this is one guy's vision, and nobody's giving him notes, and nobody's doing anything, and just sort of, this is what he was interested in doing this week, and that's kind of cool.
Right. And the Dane Cook episode is the highlight of the TV year, right? Did Breaking Bad have a moment that beat that?
Breaking Bad had a scene in the most recent episode where this big fight scene that's incredible that probably is on par with that, and sort of similar in that it's sort of long-heated resentment coming out just in a different way.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, that was almost like a nice thing for Louis to do to Dane Cook because he let him off the hook by doing it that way.
Yeah, a couple people came off really well in this season too. Their performances made me think of them differently. I think Joan Rivers, I thought she was great.
Yeah.
Doug Stanhope, who I've never really had an opinion on, I thought he was really good in the episode as the bitter, kind of failed comedian friend of Louis from way past. And I've never liked Pamela Adlon. I always thought she was annoying. I thought she was great this season.
Yeah, I mean, the episode where he tells her that he loves her and it's not going to work, but he's going to try it anyway was amazing.
You know what? I will say this, though. I don't think I've ever been more let down by an unexpected cameo in a TV show that I liked than the Chris Rock appearance in this last episode. When I saw Chris Rock, I was like, oh boy, here we go. It's on. And he just wasn't good. I mean, he didn't have a lot to work with the part, but he also wasn't good. And I don't know whether he was improvising or what was going on, but he wasn't likable. He wasn't funny. That could have been anybody playing that character. I thought it was a waste of Chris Rock.
I thought it was fun because we know that Chris Rock and Louis are friends, and you need somebody who's both a friend and a peer to tell him what he did. And it wasn't a story about Chris Rock. It was just Chris Rock serving as the guy to tell Louis to grow up. But certainly I would love to see him back and either doing something funnier or something different. Somebody said on Twitter after that episode aired that now they want to see Louis and Chris Rock make a buddy cop movie together.
That would be pretty interesting. And Louis' acting got better this year. He's still not Robert De Niro circa 1980, but I thought he was strangely effective. He's unorthodox. He feels raw.
And again, when you write everything, you direct everything, and you edit everything, you can bring out the best parts of your performance, even if you're not as great an actor as De Niro in 1980.
Yeah. Now, this is where I get depressed, because this is where I ask you, is there a blueprint here? Did Louis create something where, all right, TV networks, trust somebody who has talent and let them come up with everything for the show and stay the F out of their way, and it's going to be unconventional, but this is the best way to maybe break some new ground in television. Please tell me anybody's going to do this again.
I think I could see it happening again, because the good thing was the show last year, he's able to have all this freedom because he produces the show for no money whatsoever. The deal is they give him a cheap amount, he gets no creative interference. And so that's cool. And last year it didn't really do very well in the ratings, but it was so cheap that they brought it back. This year it actually did okay. It's a success for FX. It's going to be back again. And I mean, you need a special circumstance. I don't think NBC or ABC could do something like that, but I could certainly see another cable channel make a similar deal where, all right, you're going to turn down some money in exchange for more freedom, and I can certainly see some people at stages in their careers being willing to do that, which would be great.
Anyone on your wish list for that?
Off the top of nobody immediately comes to mind, but I'm sure something will occur to me as soon as I hang up the phone.
It would have to be somebody that was at the right point in his career. Like, for instance, I wouldn't do it with Chris Rock, because I think Chris Rock's made enough money and might not, might not have as much to prove as Louis certainly did with this.
Yeah, I mean, what helped with Louis was he did the show for HBO, Lucky Louie, which was this huge, at least critical failure, and so he definitely had something to prove and was, even though he's middle-aged, he seemed kind of young and hungry in that way.
Well, he's had a few failures because he was also involved with Dana Carvey's show.
Yep, and Pootie Tang got taken away from him by the movie studio, so he's had some issues. So this is the first time where it's all him and nobody else.
Yeah. Well,
I can see that would basically be the only circumstance under which Judd Apatow would go back to TV, would be if HBO or somebody said, all right, we'll leave you alone and you can do this.
It seems like this is the deal Aaron Sorkin has, at least to some degree, with his new HBO show.
Yeah, and I'm worried about that because he had a similar deal with NBC on Studio 60, and we saw how that turned out.
Yeah,
NBC was not allowed to give him notes, which is incredibly rare for network, and it kind of blew up in everybody's face.
Yeah, and in that case, he needed the notes a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, although I still think, man, you look back at that show, and it's like, if they just had somebody write the comedy sketches for him, and Amanda Peet doesn't get pregnant, those are two pretty big things, right? Amanda Peet,
the show had so many problems. So the fact that the sketches were bad and we were supposed to think they were good was a huge one, but there was just so many things beyond that. The whole Sarah Paulson character was so shrill and unlikable, and she was supposed to be this adorable, wonderful person. So
right, that didn't help either. It was the best Matthew Perry's ever been.
He was fantastic, and what do you call it? Nate Cordry was surprisingly good. So there was a couple of good things that came out of it, but overall that was a mess.
Yeah, Matthew Perry he's like one of those basketball players who had a lot of success early, and then that was kind of his career year, but it happened on a 32-50 NBA team that went to the lottery, and it's like, damn. Any fall shows you're excited about?
On the networks, not really. I mean, unless you really like Zooey Deschanel, which I kind of do, in which case Fox's New Girl isn't bad. The only show I'm really looking forward to in the fall, in terms of new stuff, is this Showtime thing called Homeland with Claire Danes and Damian Lewis, which is very good. But
I'm in on Homeland.
Well, there you go. Good.
I'm in on that.
Terrific.
Good trailer. 3-minute trailer. Guy sucked me in, and I got to be honest, I'm ready to go back with Claire Danes. It's been a while for me and Claire.
Yeah, no, and it's nice to have her on TV, and she's grown up, and she's looking good, and she's a really good actress. And Damian Lewis is one of my favorite actors who nobody knows, so it's a really good show. That I'm pumped for. The network stuff, much less so.
So you've seen Homeland?
I've seen the Homeland pilot. In fact, I think HitFix, we just posted the full pilot this afternoon, so anybody can come see it if they want.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in on Homeland. And then HBO has just How to Make It in America. Anything else? Nothing?
Well, Boardwalk Empire is coming back, which I know you don't like, but I'm a big fan of. Let's see. Hung is coming back.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Hung.
Really?
Third season of Hung.
Oh, my God.
There's this new Laura Dern show called Enlightened that's not very good on HBO.
That's awful.
Yeah, FX has this American Horror Story from the guys who did Glee, which people are either going to love or absolutely hate, and I'm one of the absolutely haters. So
are girls in that, though?
Yeah, kind of. No, I feel kind of bad that Mrs. Coach is stuck in the middle of this because it's just such a silly show that thinks it's a lot more profound than it is.
You want to hear what show the sports gal is most excited about?
What is the sports gal pumped for?
Any guesses?
Hater.
It's on ABC.
Charlie's Angels.
Oh, God, no.
Pan Am?
Nope. Revenge. She's
Revenge.
In on Revenge.
Oh.
Yeah, she's in on Revenge. I don't know why.
Okay. Well, because they're advertising it nonstop. You can't avoid revenge.
She likes revenge, and somebody's time's passed, and somebody's got a secret. That's all in her wheelhouse. She loved that show. What was that show where it was the 24 episodes? It was like the high school reunion show. And there was a secret, and it kept going, but then they canceled it before we found out who the killer was.
Yeah,
Remember that show?
The Fox show, yeah. You had to go to Fox's website to find out who the killer was.
That show ruined all subsequent serial shows for me because any show that I've been afraid is going to get canceled, I intentionally don't watch and catch up with on the DVD after the fact.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get hurt like I did with Reunion.
Yeah.
Whatever it was called. Wow, so it really sounds like a bleak TV season.
It is, although the one thing I've been saying is there's a lot of these, it's always hard to judge a TV show off a pilot because a pilot can often be the worst episode of a show. Sometimes it's the best. And this year more than most, it seems like a lot of the pilots I've been watching, you watch them and there's a lot of talented people and no one quite knows what to do with them yet. And so maybe like by episode 5 they'll be better, assuming they're still on the air by that point. But certainly none of the pilots have me super excited, no.
The one show that feels like could potentially work just because of the star power involved is the one with Christina Applegate and Maya Rudolph.
That's not bad. It needs to figure a few things out, but Up All Night, the NBC one where Christina Applegate and Will Arnett are new parents, is kind of funny, and definitely if you've ever been a parent to young kids and had trouble sleeping, you will relate to many things in it.
And how about this? I like Maya Rudolph. Like, why doesn't she have her own show? Yeah, why is the Maya Rudolph stock
I'm waiting
slow?
for Hollywood to figure out what to do with, because she's just so crazy talented, and there's so many things she can do, and no one part has ever quite used all of Maya Rudolph before, not even Bridesmaid. So
yeah,
she's definitely and she's fine in this, but they're still figuring out what to do with her too. So
I like Maya Rudolph. Christina Applegate's got a lot of at-bats, and Will Arnett, I think, has had more at-bats than anybody except Rennie Stennett in 1975. This is what, his 5th show?
I don't know the number, but the good thing is this is the first show he's done in a long time where he's not just playing his character from Arrested Development. So
good. He went to detox to get all those mannerisms out, I hope. Yeah,
no, he's playing a recognizable human, and it's much better.
So Fox didn't make their yearly attempt to try to replicate 24 with some sort of disastrous action show?
Well, they got Terra Nova, which is this ridiculously expensive time travel action dinosaur show, which is kind of a mess, but yeah.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, they did.
I don't understand how you didn't answer that more emphatically. You're like, well, I mean, they do have Terra Nova, an action time machine dinosaur show.
I'm just dealing with so many pilots right now, Bill, that it's all mush in my head. You got to give me like 5 seconds to properly recall them all.
How often does your wife just look and just see these DVDs strewn everywhere and just like sag her shoulders and walk away?
there's some of that. She's been doing a lot of Kardashian viewing lately, just sort of as an antidote to me watching Breaking Bad all the time.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Here's a show that could go on for 52 weeks a year as far as I'm concerned. Bachelor Pad. Just an extraordinary season. I would put it on par with Jordan's 96 MVP season for reality TV seasons. Just magnificent from beginning to end.
That's a bold statement, Bill.
Really fantastic. And I don't know anybody who watched that show who wouldn't run it back next week with a whole new season with a whole new cast. It was just great. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they find these lunatics.
Well, it's the challenge version of for The Bachelor to what Real World and Road Rules did.
That's the thing. And I was telling Jacoby this. I think they should do a stunt. You know how the TV shows on like NBC, the characters will cross shows?
Mm-hmm.
I think all the challenge people should be on Bachelor Pad and vice versa. I'd put all these Bachelor Pad people on the challenge and just flip the cast for a year. I want to see Jake like in Costa Rica, like battling some sort of telephone pole or I don't know what. But I'd be in on that. It's just amazing to me. Bachelor Pad's amazing because these people have already gone on the other show, The Bachelor, and have been crazy. And you figure they get feedback from friends and family like, oof, just for the record, like that show wasn't great for you. Like you kind of came off like a lunatic. And instead they come back for more and they're crazier.
Because fame is a drug, Bill. Like once you've had a hit, you got to keep going for as long as you possibly can. How many of these people do you know have actually gone back to their real lives straight away?
It's tough. It is like a drug. It's intoxicating, and I'll tell you what, it's intoxicating for me as a viewer. Alan Sepinwall, we will check you out on hitfix.com. I look forward to your lukewarm and pissed off reviews of all the crappy pilots that are coming up this fall. Good luck writing them, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.